My mom sold my stuff and pawned my laptop. I called the cops, had her arrested, and filed a restraining order. Christmas dinner was almost finished when my father put down his fork, looked me directly in the eye, and said, "You are a burden, and you can no longer live with us." At first, I assumed I had misheard him. My mother let out a strange, nervous laugh, as if she wasn't convinced he was serious. But then he simply sat there, staring at me, waiting for a reaction. The room went silent. My younger sister Lily froze with her fork halfway into her mouth. She glanced at me with wide eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. I swallowed the slice of ham I was chewing and set my fork down. "What?" "You heard me," he stated. "You've overstayed your welcome. You need to move out." The reality check. I just sat there, trying to process. I was 23. I had a regular career and could have left long ago, but I stayed because they needed me. I paid the energy bill, internet, and groceries most weeks, which they couldn't afford because my father had been unemployed for years and my mother only worked part-time. I was not a burden. I was the reason the lights remained on in that house. And now, out of nowhere, I'm being tossed out like a useless freeloader. Mom has finally spoken up. "Maybe we should talk about this later." "No," Dad interrupted. "This is my house, I make the rules, and I say he's done here." Lily's fear. Lily set down her fork. She was barely 16, and I could tell she was afraid. She looked at our parents as if she didn't recognize them. What did it mean for her that they could throw me out so easily? I took a deep breath. I wasn't about to argue or plead. What if they wanted me out? Fine. But they were not prepared for what that really meant. I slumped back in my chair. "All right," I said. Dad sat up straighter, as if he had won an imaginary fight. Mom still looked uneasy, but she said nothing. Perhaps she was in shock. Perhaps she didn't care as much as I imagined she would. I stood up, grabbed my plate, and took it to the sink. I didn't want to give them the reaction they expected. Instead, I gazed at Lily, who remained tight and uncertain. I gave her a slight nod. She was the only one at the table that I still cared about. Dad sipped his drink, as if nothing had happened. Mom returned to picking at her mashed potatoes. Lily continued looking at me, as if she wanted to say something, but didn't. I did not remain to complete dinner. I just walked out. The silent goodbye. That night, I walked directly to my room, closed the door, and began packing. I wasn't going to waste time figuring out why they were doing this. If they wanted me gone, I was gone. However, this meant they would lose all I had paid for. And I wasn't about to warn them. I packed quietly, but I could hear them talking below. Mom's voice sounded low and terrified. Dad's tone sounded forceful, as if he were attempting to persuade her of anything. I caught bits and pieces. "He's old enough. We can handle it. He should have moved out years ago." An hour later, Lily knocked at my door. I opened it, and she slipped inside, closing it behind her. She appeared distressed, her eyes red as if she had been sobbing. "What the hell was that?" she said. "I don't know," I replied, tucking my laptop into my bag. "But I'm leaving tomorrow." She shakes her head. "That's crazy. You pay for everything? They can't even afford food without you." "Not my problem anymore." Lily bit her lip, clearly attempting to keep back more tears. "Where are you going?" "I'll figure it out." The fact was that I had some money saved up, but I had not intended on moving out so soon. I'd have to locate a place quickly, perhaps staying at a friend's for a while. But I wasn't concerned. I would be all right. They would not. Lily paused. "Can I?" She stopped herself. I knew what she'd ask. She wanted to join me. But she was still in high school, and as much as I disliked leaving her behind, I couldn't bring her with me. "You know they'd never let that happen," you said. She stared down at the floor. "Yeah." I finished packing while she stood there, as if she didn't want to go. Finally, she sighed. "You're going to regret this." I grinned. "I know." The next morning, I left before they even awoke. I hauled my bags downstairs, loaded my car, and took one last glance around the house. There's no sadness. No regrets. Just relief. Then, as I was driving out of the driveway, I entered my banking app and erased my name off all bills. Electric, internet, water. Even the Netflix account I had paid for each of them. Without me, everything would shut down within a month. I grinned, put my car into drive, and drove away without looking back. For the next few days, I stayed at my friend Jake's apartment while looking for a place of my own. His sofa sucked. His dog, Max, would not stop looking at me while I tried to sleep. His roommate repeatedly asked, "Are you staying forever?" But none of this mattered. Because I was free. No more paying for a house that I didn't want to live in. No longer pretending to appreciate a man who threw me out of Christmas dinner. No more being regarded as a walking ATM. I was finally doing something for myself. 3 days after I left, my phone started ringing. Initially, I ignored it. 7 missed calls from my mother. My father called me twice, which surprised me because he seldom did. Lily sent a handful of SMS. I also ignored those. Until she sent it. "They're freaking out, the power's been cut off." I grinned. They honestly believed that the bills would magically pay themselves. Then, another text. "Dad's losing his mind. He said you did something to the house." Oh, this was getting better. I could just imagine Dad stomping about in the dark, cursing at my mother while she cried over the Wi-Fi being down. An hour later, my phone called again. This time, I responded. The moment I took up the phone, my mother's voice hit me like a hurricane. "Kevin, we don't know what happened. The power's out. The internet's down. The water bill." "You didn't pay," I replied simply. Silence. Then, in a hushed voice, "You paid for these?" I nearly laughed. "Are you serious? Who else did you think was paying for them?" She paused. "Your father said." She interrupted herself. I already knew. My father was too proud to acknowledge he didn't know how things worked. He presumably assured her that everything would be all right. That the house would function flawlessly even without me. "Not my problem anymore," I said. "Kevin, please, we didn't mean..." I hung up. Not my problem anymore. I assumed that was the end of it. They would figure it out. Perhaps my father will finally get off his ass and get a job. Perhaps my mother would work more hours. Perhaps they will sell something to keep the lights on. Either way, it's not my concern. The next morning, I awoke to a message from my bank. Fraud alert. A suspicious login attempt was detected. I sat up fast, my heart racing. I checked my email. 3 additional alerts. Someone had attempted to enter my account. And I already recognized who it was. I quickly logged in and went over my purchases. Nothing had been taken yet. But there it was. An attempt to reset a password. Another failed login. Then a third. I clenched my jaw. My father must have been quite desperate, calling Lily. I phoned Lily, she responded right away. "I was just about to call you," she said quietly. "Dad's freaking out. He keeps yelling about money. He was on the computer all morning." I breathed sharply. Trying to get into my bank account. She was silent for a second before cursing beneath her breath. "Does he have my old passwords?" I inquired. "Probably," she confessed. "You know how Mom used to keep them in that little notebook by the computer." I knew it. My father must have gone through that, figuring I'd be stupid enough to continue using the same passwords from high school. "Kevin," Lily whispered. Her voice shook. "He's really pissed. I think..." She paused. I heard shouts in the background. My father's booming voice, the banging of doors, and my mother crying. "I think he's going to do something stupid." Lily's words sent shivers down my spine. "What do you mean? What did he say?" I inquired, squeezing my phone more tightly. She lowered her voice. "He's saying you ruined us. That you did this on purpose to screw him over. He's talking about calling the cops." I nearly laughed. "For what? Not paying his bills?" "I don't know," she hissed. "He's losing it. Mom's crying, saying she'll talk to you, but he won't listen. He keeps saying, he's not gonna get away with this. Kevin, I think he wants to go after you." That took the smile off my face. I had expected my father to get desperate. To beg. Perhaps even try to guilt trip me. But to believe he would gain revenge on me? That was a new level of foolishness. Locking down everything. "Lock your door," I instructed her. "If he does something crazy, call me." I hung up and quickly changed all of my passwords. Bank accounts, email, streaming services, even my Amazon login. Then I called my bank to report the hacking attempt. They had locked my account so tightly that I even had difficulty logging in for a few hours. I assumed that was the end of it. I was completely mistaken. That night, Jake and I were hanging out in his apartment, playing some ridiculous Xbox game. Then, bang! Someone slammed the door. Hard. Jake paused the game. "Are you expecting someone?" I was not. I already got a horrible feeling. I got up, walked to the peephole, and my stomach dropped. It was my father. He was standing in the corridor, hands clenched and breathing like a bull prepared to charge. Jake asked, Who is it? I stepped back from the door. My dad. Jake stood up. Dude, what's going on? Bang. Kevin, open the door. I did not move. Bang. This time, it's harder. I know you're in there. You think you can just walk away from this? Jake scowled at me. Dude, should we? Before he finished, my father kicked the door in. Calling 911. That was it. I grabbed my phone and called 911. My dad just showed up at my apartment, I told the dispatcher. He's banging on the door, yelling at me, and he just tried to kick it in. Jake stepped back. Kevin, this is crazy. I met his gaze. Yeah, I know. I held the phone to my ear while my father continued yelling, You ungrateful little. You think you can just walk away? You owe us? You? Sir, officers are on their way. The dispatcher stated. 2 minutes later, I heard sirens. Then my father's voice went silent. A knock at the door. Police, open up. I opened the door just in time to see 2 officers handcuff my father. His face was hot and his chest heaved, but as he noticed me standing there, his expression altered. There were no regrets. There is no humiliation. Just pure hatred. You did this, he muttered as he was dragged away. I simply stood there, unaffected. Because the reality was, he did this to himself. They took my father away that night, but I knew things weren't finished. An hour later, Lily called. Mom's losing it, she explained. She's crying and saying it's all your fault. Yeah, that sounds about right. She keeps saying you have to fix this. She's already calling people, trying to get bail money. I nearly laughed. With what money? Silence. Because we knew they didn't have any. No electricity. There's no internet. No savings. And now there is no father figure to yell at everyone while trying to be in charge. Without me, they were sinking quickly. I should have felt bad. But I only felt relief. Keep an eye on her, I advised Lily. If she does anything crazy, call me. Lily texted me the next morning. Mom's selling your stuff. I froze. Then I called her. She picked up immediately, her voice harsh. I told you to fix this? Are you selling my stuff? A pause. Then, bluntly. We need money, Kevin. I clenched my jaw. So you're stealing from me? You don't live here anymore, she yelled. You left all this behind. It's in our house, that makes it ours. She felt no regret. There is no guilt. It's just entitlement. I'm calling the cops. Don't you dare. I hung up. Then I phoned the cops. 2 hours later, I received a call back. We talked to your mother, the officer stated. She wasn't happy, but she's agreed to hold your things until you can pick them up. I messaged Lily. I'm coming over. But I should have realized they were not prepared. Because when I arrived at the house, something made my stomach plummet. My automobile, sitting on the driveway. It should not have been there, I had left it at Jake's flat. I turned off the engine, my heart thumping. My car wasn't simply here. It had been driven. The front seat was folded back, as if someone had sat in it. The glove compartment was open, and, worst of all, the gas tank was nearly empty. I clenched my fist. They'd stolen my car. The confrontation before I could exit, the front door swung open. My mother stepped outside, arms crossed. You called the cops on me? She remarked. You stole my car, I snapped back. She scoffed. It was just sitting there? You weren't using it. I stared at her, trying to grasp the absurdity of this logic. It's my car. How did you even get it? She didn't respond. But I already knew. They had an extra key. Mom, I said, my voice dangerously calm. If you don't give me my key, I'm calling the cops again. Her expression flickered for a second. Then, without speaking, she stormed inside. A minute later, she returned and threw the key at me. It struck my chest and landed on the grass. There, she spat. Happy? I picked it up, trying not to be angry. I'm taking my things. And then I'm leaving, for good. I walked past her and into the home. Lily waited in the hall, looking nervous. She took your laptop and pawned it, she said quietly. I closed my eyes. Take a breath in, breathe out. Then I turned to my mother. Where's my laptop? She raised her chin. I told you, we needed money. That was it. I took out my phone, dialed 911 for the second time this week, and let her watch. Yes, I want to report a stolen vehicle and stolen property, I responded, looking her dead in the eyes. My mother has just revealed that she pawned my laptop without authorization. Her face lost its color. This time, she was the one who had to deal with the police. My mother worried when she realized I wasn't bluffing. "You can't do this," she muttered, her tone low. "I'm your mother." I ignored her. "Yes, officer. I have proof that she admitted to taking my belongings and pawning them," I stated over the phone. "I want to press charges." Lily stood motionless, her gaze flitting between us. My mother's hands were shaking now. She was absolutely taken aback, as if she believed she could keep pushing and I would never push back. "Kevin," she said again, this time softly, like if she were pleading. "We're struggling. Your father's in jail." I had no choice. "You had a choice," I explained. "You could have worked more. You could have sold your own stuff. You could have asked for help instead of throwing me out like garbage." She blinked rapidly, her face contorted. I was angry. I laughed. "Yeah, so was I." I heard sirens outside. My mother jumped. A few minutes later, 2 officers walked through the door. "Sir, did you call about the stolen property?" one of them inquired. I nodded and pointed to my mother. "She took my laptop and pawned it. I want to press charges." My mother gasped as if I'd stabbed her. "Kevin, don't do this." The officers turned to her. "Ma'am, is this true?" She hesitated, her gaze shifting between me, Lily, and the cops. I could see her calculating, attempting to determine whether she could lie her way out of this. Then Lily spoke. "She told him herself. Just before he called you." My mother snapped her head at Lily so quickly, it was almost frightening. "You little..." "Ma'am." One of the cops interrupted her. "Do you have a receipt from the pawn shop?" Her face fell. She knew what was coming. They took her outside. I looked through the window while they spoke with her for a few minutes. Handcuffs appeared unexpectedly. She was straining, crying, and yelling. Neighbors looked through their blinds. The entire street most likely heard her weeping about how she was simply a struggling mother and how unjust this was. Lily stood beside me, looking out the window. She gulped hard. "Is this really happening?" I nodded. "Yes." And for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. The text message. My phone buzzed with a message from an unexpected number. "You're going to regret this." My chest tightened. I read it again. Then I realized, my father had been released on bond. When I saw that message, I knew exactly what had occurred. Someone had bailed my father out, and I had a fairly solid idea who. Probably one of his old drinking cronies, or perhaps a distant family member who hadn't heard the entire story. In any case, he was done and angry. I showed Lily the text. Her face turned pallid. "Kevin, you need to leave." "No," I replied. I turned to face the cops, who were still outside dealing with my mother. "Can I go in and get the rest of my stuff?" One of them nodded. "As long as it's okay with your sister." Lily was already moving. "Let's make this quick." We walked upstairs and packed everything that was mine. Clothes, old video games. Even the silly things I had left behind, thinking I'd come back for them one day. I was not coming back. Ever. As I took the last box to my car, my mother was still crying in the driveway, pleading with the officers to let her go. "This is a misunderstanding. He's my son. He wouldn't do this to me." I just strolled by her, unconcerned. She screamed my name, as if it would suddenly change anything. I got in my car. Lily stood in front of my window, shuffling from foot to foot. "I don't want to stay here." I exhaled. "I know you don't, but you only have 2 years until you're 18. She nodded with watery eyes. "I'll be fine. I'll just be quiet and keep my head down. Call me if anything happens." She nodded again. Then headlights arrived on the roadway. An automobile turned onto our street. My stomach sank. It was my father. He pulled up right as I started the engine. He hardly had time to go before I put it in reverse and backed into the street. He stared at me with hatred in his eyes, as if he were about to approach and try something. I rolled down my window just enough to carry my voice. "You try to come near me again, I'm filing a restraining order." His hands tightened into fists. "You think you're better than us?" I smiled. "I know I am." Then I drove away. It was the last time I saw them. I blocked my parents' phone numbers, changed my financial information, moved, and never looked back. Lily's independence. Lily kept out for 2 years, just as she promised. She left as soon as she turned 18. She moved in with a buddy and headed off to college. We're still talking all the time. The consequences? My parents? My father never had a job. My mother lost the house a year later. They bounced around for a while, destroying relationships with family. And the last I heard, they were renting a dilapidated flat in a poor neighborhood. They attempted to reach out to me, Facebook messages, unknown numbers, even letters. I never responded because they had made their pick for Christmas dinner, and I made mine. Refused to babysit on the family vacation. Now my sister is furious. My parents are involved and the whole trip might be cancelled. At 23, I've often been assigned the roles of assistants and babysitter on family outings. I had to move out of my parents' house because I was constantly being forced to watch my 3 nephews. Last summer, we went on a family vacation to the seashore. I traveled with my parents, who paid for my hotel room. However, I had to share a room with 3 loud boys because my sister and her husband preferred a separate room. I was promised time to do my own thing throughout the vacation, but I ended up needing to help with the kids. I protested to everyone about it and was told that I was there for free. We only did one thing I wanted: visit an art gallery. I enjoy doing this anytime I'm at the coast, but the kids found it dull. This year, my parents have a beach trip planned for June, and they figured I'd be riding the same route as last year. I refused. I stated that I would drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay to have my own room. My parents were surprised and attempted to remind me of the cost. I told them not to worry. I have a nice job and a decent operating automobile, so I can easily afford it. That's when the but began. I enumerated the reasons why I will drive alone and pay for my own room. I want to enjoy my vacation as an adult rather than being treated like a child, like I was last year. My parents informed my sister, and she called to yell at me, saying I'd be spoiling the holiday if I was off doing my own thing while she had to wrangle her 3 boys. I ended myself ranting at her, pointing out how all she did last year was drag me into her mess. I didn't get to do much of what I wanted and was seen as the bad guy for simply wanting to go to an art gallery. I'm a grown man who deserves his own vacation. My sister has stopped speaking to me and my parents are still trying to persuade me to ride with them to keep the peace. I am still refusing, but the pressure is getting to me. Am I a jerk for not giving in? I know they'll struggle if they don't have someone to aid them. Edit. My sister, who appears to be a Reddit lurker, saw my post less than an hour after I wrote it. She's furious with me and upset that no one in the comments agrees with her. She went on a rant about how difficult it is to be a parent to triplets, and how the least I could do was help because I am young and unmarried. She stated she needed a break. I kept my position, and now she is contacting our parents to get them involved. I expect a call from them any minute. Update. Now that I'm off work, I can tell you more about what happened. To put it simply, it is over. My sister got our parents involved. They glanced at my post and were startled by the number of comments. Yes, they're upset with me for writing here, but I reminded them that if they'd just listened to me from the beginning, I wouldn't have had to. I'm tired of the keep the peace mentality that makes me a sacrifice for my sister. In turn, they went off on her, and the entire vacation was cancelled. The hotel hadn't been booked yet, but my parents are bickering with my sister, who is blaming me, and my nephews are sobbing because they won't be going to the beach. My sister contacted me at lunch and hinted that I have no life, therefore I have time to help her. I filmed that and informed our parents, which is what they are currently fighting about. Small update. I was not going to update again, but here's a little more. My parents claimed they would never force me to babysit my nephews again and agreed that what happened last year was unfair. They're currently furious with my sister for telling me that I should help her since she believes I have no life. My sister is playing the victim, while my brother-in-law is mainly out of the picture, spending his time at work. Thank you to everyone who commented. You made my day. Update 1. My parents apologized, but my sister didn't, at least not first. I created this throwaway account a week ago to see if I was the jerk. It turned out that I was anything but. I have too much to say to publish an update on AITA, so a friend suggested I come here. Posting on the jerk, literally opened a Pandora's box among the family. Basically, my parents and older sister were extremely comfortable with me assisting with the care of my young triplet nephews. I didn't leave home until I was 22 since I was attempting to save money while also attending college. A scholarship covered a lot, and living at home protected me from going into debt because I was also working part-time. I am very grateful for this. However, after college, everyone treated me as if I had limitless free time and persuaded me to accompany them on a family trip. During this so-called vacation, I was compelled to babysit my 3 6-year-old nephews. I had to share a motel room with them, and trust me, those youngsters didn't listen to a word I said. They did not behave the first night until I contacted their mother twice. Even so, I was considered the bad guy for wanting to do other things on the trip. It seemed as if it wasn't something the entire family enjoyed, it wouldn't happen. This was highly hypocritical because I too am family and was not involved in the voting. You can bet I discussed this issue with my parents following my previous post, and they admitted they were incorrect. After that dreadful vacation last year, I decided it was time to move out, and I did so before the summer was up. This astonished everyone because I gave them no notice. I obtained a terrific job very immediately after graduation owing to an internship, and I utilized the move as an excuse to reduce my commute from 45 minutes to 15. My sister despised it the most because it meant no more free babysitting on weekends, but she still attempted to force me to do it. I caved occasionally, usually after being tempted with pizza, and this became the new normal. But then, last month, my parents revealed plans for another family trip to the same location down the coast, and they essentially wanted everything to proceed the same way. I quickly recognized it for what it was, a trap. I knew that if I rode with my parents and allowed them to pay for the hotel rooms, I would be taken advantage of again. So I casually mentioned that I would drive and pay for myself, and that's when the storm began. When my parents realized they couldn't entrap me like previously, they turned to borderline begging, and my sister practically tried to force me to go along with the flow by gaslighting. Newsflash, I didn't. After refusing to give in to my sister's demands, I made the Am I the Jerk article following days of pestering. My sister discovered the post in less than an hour. What followed was Pandora's box. Initially, the family was against me. My sister called our parents, and they called me when I still had some time to talk in the morning. My folks were on the phone with me as they read my post. I inquired if they thought anything in the post was a lie. They skirted the issue by calling the piece an exaggeration, but I pointed out other elements that proved it to be rather accurate. Then I instructed them to check the remarks. There were already way too many to read. I kept refreshing the website on my own computer and informing them how many comments there were. Then I informed them I was weary of their approach to keeping the peace by pressuring me to please my sister. I mentioned I was out of time and that we would have to resume later. My parents were absolutely frightened that hundreds, if not thousands of people had commented in a matter of hours. Later, I informed them that the numbers had nearly doubled and were continuously increasing, which only added to their anguish. I guess they were forced to reflect on their own behavior. My sister tried to call me while I was at work, but my phone was set to mute until my lunch break, so she could only leave messages and texts. She was persistent and got through to me when I was eating my lunch. The gist of the talk was that my post had pushed our parents away from her side, and they were now angry with her. My parents canceled the entire vacation after their dispute. Yes, they eventually admitted that they simply passed the blame out of embarrassment and accepted full responsibility. They told me that no justification could justify making me their go-to free babysitter when I no longer lived at home. They attempted to backtrack a little by pointing out that they never charged me rent when I was in college, but I reminded them that children do not beg to be born, and I was working hard to make my own way. Then I mentioned that my father had the same advantage because his parents allowed him to live at home for free while in college. That very much ended whatever dispute my folks had left. When my sister called me at lunch, I explained the situation to her, and she revealed her true colors. She intimated that I had no life and that my free time on weekends should be spent assisting her because she is exhausted and unable to go out without her children unless they are being watched. She is a stay-at-home mother whose husband earns a respectable living. They reside in a decent house that is owned rather than rented. To be honest, my nephews aren't really my responsibility. They simply imposed them on me and expected it to stay that way. My sister abruptly hung up on me, but I had recorded the conversation and played it for my parents later. They were outraged and basically went to war with my sister. She dug her heels in, blamed me, and then reaffirmed her idea that my existence should center around her. I told her that was the most narcissistic and entitled thing she had ever said about me. It took days, but her husband eventually intervened and pushed her to apologize to me. I'd never seen her so intimidated by anyone, but she was on the point of tears. It was later revealed that one of the reasons I was the go-to babysitter was that my sister did not trust others. It was never about the money, or was it? My brother-in-law assumed my sister was paying me for the time I spent after her children after I moved out of my parents' home. She didn't even give me petrol money, just enough money to get pizza for myself and the kids and keep the rest. For months, my sister had been shortchanging me. He yelled at her when this came out during her half-hearted apologies, and she was obliged to pay me what she owed, all from her own savings, which she appeared to be upset about. Then my brother-in-law apologized to me for his own passivity in allowing my sister to walk all over me and vowed to get a regular babysitter from now on. Yes, it will cost them a little money, but my sister will be able to reclaim her date nights. Then there was the family meeting the other evening. We all convened at my parents' place, and everything was laid bare, with apologies all around. My parents reinstated the family vacation, and I still intend to drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay. If my sister tries to relegate me to childcare duties, I'll stay in an entirely different hotel. I've said this, and she has guaranteed me that it will not happen. If I don't post again after my vacation in another month or two, you'll know everything is fine. Update 2. My sister contacted me and demanded that I take down my posts. Knowing how far it has spread has made her much more upset than she was previously. Having a family that is aware of your Reddit account has its drawbacks. My sister called me yesterday after I got off work to see whether any comments were still pouring in. She stated that she cannot take the negativity of looking at them because all of the comments are harmful to her. I was brutally honest. At least 10 comments come in every day and the majority of them say the same thing about her. She began crying and requesting that I erase my Reddit postings, but I refused, telling her that she could cry to anybody she wanted, but the posts would remain since they were my promise that she would no longer treat me badly. After all, she felt like my life should revolve around hers, didn't pay me the babysitting money she was due, pocketed it for herself and forced me to be the continuous babysitter on last year's family vacation, so I had almost no pleasure at all. Is it any surprise that people dislike her so much after she treated me so badly? My sister yelled and hung off when I indicated that the posts had already spread to other websites since I had been approached a couple of times to allow an article about my position to be written, as well as some videos. My parents immediately contacted and begged me to take down the post. I declined, claiming that I only did this because they did not stand up for me. This would never have happened if they had told my sister to treat me as an equal rather than a servant. I am not her butler, babysitter, or handyman. I am her freaking brother and a mature man. Wouldn't they be bored of this bullshit if they were in my situation? They agreed, but asked me to take down the posts. I refused, saying I'd keep creating more if they didn't start standing up for me when my sister cried to them. Allow her to clean up her own messes, because their enabling of her has led to this. I didn't father those children. I have my own life, a new career and, ideally, a girlfriend. As there is someone I want to ask out. I am moving forward in my life and I will not be held back. They could either get out of my way or continue enabling my sister, but I warned them that the latter would end horribly for them. The only way for this Reddit post to stop is if the drama does. I've kept everything anonymous and I have the right to express my reasonable frustrations. My mother cried, and my father remained silent. I replied, "Tears don't move me. You know what it will take to put an end to this. Quit enabling my sister." My sister called me again, yelling that our parents had informed her they were no longer dealing with this and that she should figure it out on her own. Oh, and they told her to be kinder to me too. I imagined her eye twitching as she shouted within after hearing that. Be friendly to my little brother. What's this? Should I search it up on Google? Yeah, I was that sarcastic to her, but it made her weep too. When I hung up, my brother-in-law called me later to hear my side of the story. He was upset that I was still posting and that it had made his wife cry. I explained everything to him, and he promised to talk to my sister again. I'm hoping the drama stops here, but the family vacation is still scheduled for late June. I've already booked my room and requested a day off from work so that we can all travel on Friday. My room is also not near the ones that my parents, sister, Bill and nephews will use. In actuality, it is not on the same floor. When we go to the shore, if it is not a family activity, I will go where I want and do whatever I want. You can guarantee I'll visit those art galleries, eat local cuisine and simply relax for a change. Update 3. After the family vacation. The family vacation has come to an end, and as expected, some good and terrible things happened. The good news is that my parents refused to let my sister force me to babysit. Oh, she did try. The bad news is that my sister attempted to find out which room I was in, but she failed and got into trouble with her husband again. To begin, I informed the hotel ahead of time that they were not to disclose any of my personal information to anyone who inquired, with the exception of the police in the event of a major incident. They told me over the phone that they wouldn't tell anyone. On the day of our vacation, I left earlier than the rest of the family. I knew they wouldn't be able to move as a group until 10 a.m., so I left at 9 a.m. Check-in wasn't until 1 p.m., so I wanted to get a jump start. I sent out an FYI group text and took off like a shot to make the 3-hour drive. My parents were furious because they had planned a family brunch on the way, but I pointed out that I had never been informed of this, so it was cancelled in favor of fast food, as I had intended. I arrived at the hotel too early to check in, but I informed the desk staff that I was there to ensure that neither my parents nor my sister received any of my information. They claim they don't do it, but I told them I know it does happen on occasion, so I'm covering my ass. I informed them that they might be dealing with my mother, sister, and 3 potentially weeping sons attempting to guilt them at the desk, and they should not give in. I wanted to know if they tried anything. They clumsily promised me that no one else would have access to my room. Then I decided to go out and get some food. When I returned more than an hour later, there were my parents' cars and Bill's large SUV. I walked to the desk to check in, first ensuring that the foyer was clear, which it was. I asked the clerk whether my family had inquired about me and where I was staying at the motel. They did, but the clerk refused to inform them. My sister supposedly tried to press it, but her husband silenced her. I checked in, walked to my room, and called my parents. I didn't disclose anything they tried with the cashier, and they also didn't mention it. Then we all got together as a family to tour about. My sister once asked me to watch her kids for a moment, and I said, hell no, since I knew precisely what she was doing. She'd pretend to be gone for a moment before disappearing for an hour. I called her out, and her husband warned her to quit trying to force me to care for their children. What did my sister do? She just started bawling on the spot, claiming she needed a break. Her husband chastised her, stating he was exhausted but didn't complain. My mother gave me a terrible look, so I went up to her and told her that if she believes I should be monitoring those kids, I'm leaving this family vacation right now. It is not my job, and I am weary of her and my sister acting as if it were. That made my mother weep as well, and she just kept saying, "You're right," over and over. This is another old ploy of hers. She tries to appear miserable in order to guilt me. But I simply said, "I am right," and walked away. My mother and sister did not try anything else for the remainder of the day. When we returned to the hotel after dinner, my family crowded the elevator, but I didn't join them. They questioned why, and I replied that I would wait for the next one. My sister stared at me, knowing exactly what I was doing. Then I sat in the lobby for 15 minutes, watching YouTube on my phone before taking the elevator up. I was on a different floor, on the opposite end of the hotel. I had a wonderful night, and the next morning, we all went out to breakfast, but I made sure they left first. I was the last to leave, just as I had been the previous night. Breakfast went well, and then I said that I was going to do my own thing for the day. My mother brought up plans to go to the aquarium and a couple of other places, so I agreed to meet them there, but the rest of the day was mine until family dinner. They accepted this, and the day went well. Back at the motel that evening, however, my sister caught me leaving my room. She must have been stalking the entire floor looking for me. I returned to my room to relax a little before supper because I was exhausted after walking so much. When I left my room to join them for dinner, my sister was just down the hall. She tried to corner me and accuse me of ruining her family vacation because it was now no different for her than being at home, with her kids to manage. I nicknamed it Bullpit because my parents were quite helpful to her. Then I informed her that I was sick of being her scapegoat, and it was already finished, so leave me alone and get on with your life. Then I began walking, while she yelled, "Hey, I'm trying to talk to you." I told her I didn't care and was going to supper. She accompanied me to the elevator, and we said nothing to one another. I didn't keep quiet about it though. I told my parents and brother-in-law that my sister had stalked me to find my room. She was scolded as a child. She had a pity party, but I encouraged her to stop it and grow up. The days when she could impose her will on me were over. Then I left the lobby and got into my car. This time I was the first one at dinner. When everyone else arrived, my sister appeared depressed, but nothing was spoken about what had happened before, which was good with me. My sister avoided making any contact with me during the evening. This time, I didn't care about riding in the elevator with the rest of them, and I told them straight out that unless there was an emergency, no one would come knocking on my door. I hung a "Do Not Disturb" sign for a reason. Everything went well on the final day. My sister and mother didn't disturb me at all. They had fully succumbed by this point. Yes, I did play with my nephews throughout the vacation. I am not a complete jerk. I did not stonewall them. I continued to be the fun uncle, but not the babysitter uncle. The children didn't appear to care. They just wanted to play. I also bought each of them a small baggie containing crystals and polished stones to take home as a souvenir. My sister and her husband had some minor arguments, but I didn't pay much attention to them. Overall, I'd call the vacation a success since it finally got home for my mother and sister that the old way of doing things with me was done, and I now have my own life. Update 4. Mother and sister viewed my last post. They don't know when to leave well enough alone. Hey mom and sis, I told you that if you didn't stop I'd go back to Reddit, and here I am. The short version is that when my mother and sister saw my last post, they freaked out. My sister had been following my account for days, knowing I would post. So what did she expect? That I'd simply say everyone had a wonderful time. She called and cried, claiming that I made her look like a bad mother. I responded, well, if the glass slipper fits. My sister continued to argue with me, but I asked her to point out any lies in the post. She attempted multiple times, but I pointed out that every detail was accurate. So what does she do? She calls mommy. Then my mother arrived at my door and demanded that I erase all of the posts. I told her no, and now I have additional ammunition. I ended up making her leave in tears. Later, I called my mother and father and simply told them that their enabling of my sister was the root cause of the prior family dynamic. I'll never go back to the way things were, so if they have any hope left, I'm extinguishing it forever. My parents then begged my sister, for the love of God, stop blaming me and leave me alone. They can't handle the stress of my revenge anymore. My sister had a literal no one loves me pity party, and my parents had to bring her back to reality. My brother-in-law hasn't called, I believe he's being neutral, but this can't be good for his marriage or my familial connection to him. Out of respect for my brother-in-law, I apologize, but your wife pushed me too far. Currently, my parents are asking that my sister get treatment since she cannot be a mother while also juggling her old habits. Woman up, as they say. In any case, I hope this will be my last post. Do you hear that, sis? If you don't stop thinking I should have been your personal slave, babysitter, watchdog and so on, and continue to act as if the entire world is against you because you can't lord over me, we can't be together. If you're willing, maybe we can get along and move on from this bullshit. Do not give me a reason to write anything else. From now on, I will only publish stuff about myself and the treatment I receive from others. Treat me as a nice human being, and this will be over. Capiche? Update. My parents and I had a long conversation in which they apologized, and we've decided that I'll keep my distance until Thanksgiving. I also had a man-to-man conversation with my brother-in-law last night over several cold beers. He warned my sister that she needed counseling or he would leave her, and they are currently looking for a counselor. He also told me that while my sister was an absolute devil to me at home, she is a really caring and endearing wife, albeit she admits that she enjoyed being an only kid. We are over a decade apart in age, so my sister harbored hatred for a long time and allowed it to build up. She's accepted that she does need counseling, and they'll go as soon as it's scheduled. They've also recruited a certified babysitter to care for my nephews. Aside from that, my brother-in-law stated that he was unhappy with me but did not intervene when I needed him, so we agreed that this was all simply a horrible situation that needed to be resolved. We're going to let it slumber in peace from now on. Finally, these posts helped me get a girlfriend. After reading them, the girl I loved suspected it was me and was waiting for me to say something. We'll be out on our first date tonight, so I want to thank everyone here for their overwhelming support. I truly needed it.